agenda. If you guys can hang on for another 10 minutes, we'll have a break. We thought just to keep the momentum up, we would do the panel immediately following this last presentation. So we could ask our last three presenter sessions, people to come up on stage, and we can take some questions from the audience, and also we can check with our web stream audience to see if they posted any questions on Twitter. After that, we'll have a nice coffee break. Jason, Paul, Jerome, and Don.
So the way we did this last year is this was our opportunity to ask questions, and we've had that opportunity throughout this morning because we have a wonderful timekeeper this year, and we're not running behind schedule. So we do have an opportunity to talk, I guess, collectively about mobile learning in general and what it means based on the presentations that you saw, which were quite varied, both in terms of the environments in which they're being applied. We have university context, we have a hospital context, and then we have also applied learning context with the fire. So I'm wondering with that if you have any questions that you'd like to begin with. Yes, Jenny? Okay, so the question is, how do you balance the notion of accessibility with confidentiality and security? A question an IT department would ask, actually, probably. Let's get started. So perhaps in a medical context, how does that come up?
Make sure everything's running secure with the HTTPS, so that's pretty much it. Everything, all the traffic's secure. There are a lot of external documents that you can't access unless you're on the internal network. So what we're actually doing there is we're going to create a screen scraper that scrapes those documents and puts them onto Moodle so that they will be accessible. But that's in the development stages, so there is a fine line there, and our servers are in a separate zone than all the other servers, so all the patient data is here, and then you have a separate section for I think the only externally web-facing servers within VCH other than the web page that you would go to, vch.ca. So that's how we deal with the security. And that's why some of the things that they're doing with downloading all the content and putting it onto a mobile device, I don't know how thrilled information privacy would be about that kind of stuff, but I'm sure that certain PDF documents and that we could get away with.
Does anybody else on the panel have a comment to make about that? Yeah.
So actually that's an interesting question, because I was thinking of this even for my students, because anytime you present a logon, you really have a barrier to entry to materials. So initially and currently in my WordPress site, everything is behind this one login, and what I'd like to do next time is in WordPress you can actually have a plugin that you can assign rights to specific pages. I'd like to have most of my site open to the public and allow content to be accessed from students without having to go through a logon, but things like the forum where there might be discussions, or maybe there's materials that I don't want to have widely distributed, then I might have that locked down. But definitely that's a subject that I'm thinking about too, to make it easier, like I say, not to have that barrier of entry for students who really just want to get to learning content.
Is this an issue for fire at all, or?
We have some issue with it, although there's little privacy related because it's sort of generalized public information knowledge on buildings. Having said that, we use timeout protocols, and the Citrix system itself that we access through to the dispatch data is all both firewalled and encrypted, and we have token technology with the rotating token numbers through Citrix that is issued directly to an individual. So when we log in, they know who the individual is that is logging in at any one time. It's not generalized access at all. And then we utilize also the timeout procedures through the iPad itself with the 5-minute trigger. If there's no activity, it times out and locks it all down, and Citrix locks out as well. So from our point of view, there is some concern about it, but the IT departments have put in place enough protection that everybody's comfortable with it now. So.
And from a training standpoint, we don't deal in site-level operating procedures and specific. We deal with best practices and deal with concepts. So for us, it's not a tremendous issue. The learning aspect is managed through, Blackboard 8, Blackboard 9, and the traditional security measures that are taken through accessing online learning. The stuff that you saw today is freely available. If you go to FEMA or Public Safety Canada, you can get all of those documents. A lot of them are very U.S.-centric. And there's not a lot of Canadian content, especially in terms of applications for Canadian first responders to have what the U.S. first responders. So we're just repurposing things that available for about 30 years.
It did that last year too, kicked out every once in a while. I'm just wondering whether, if anybody's monitoring the Twitter feed, whether there's a question from the web participants. No? Not yet? Okay, feel free to tweet your questions. We won't forget about you. Is there any other questions? Or there are. Okay, I have mine. No, 1, 2, 3, actually. Do you know who's first? Okay. So the question was, there's a remark that most of the demonstrations talked about iPhone, iPad, and in one case there was only 3% BlackBerry users, and whether any of these things that we're talking about today are being developed for the BlackBerry or Android, I imagine, is part of that question?
Yes, there are plans to develop apps for BlackBerry and Android. A little bit more difficult to develop through BlackBerry than it is for iOS. But having said that, yes, there are plans to do that. And in the meantime, BlackBerry and Android users can access through the web. All of the content on there is either in flash format for a particular platform, or in MP4, H.264 encoded for QuickTime.
That's one of the reasons that we developed it strictly with HTML standards or web standards, so it would work on any device without having to need an app. So it will work on the Playbook, it will work on other tablets, it will work on the BlackBerry, it just works. And you don't need the apps. I like what they're doing with the apps. I think it's great that you could not have the internet. But as far as we're concerned, we force our users, they have to have the internet. They got no choice about it. So we can get away with that.
So the question was really around the learning retention research, perhaps around that has been researched already with other previous technologies, but what about with mobile devices?
I don't know the specific name of the source, but it's not good. So basically the information coming back from like professional learning people is that the retention level, or maybe mobile, isn't the way to go to learn. That's the initial stuff that I've been reading.
I'd say, from my perspective, I think it's also about what kind of media is being used. So if you notice in the course website I showed you, I'm thinking it's more likely a mobile user might be interested in listening to a podcast right, going somewhere, maybe video, but I'm thinking more podcasts, and also just as I need a bit of information, so it's just kind of like a cherry picking of information when mobile. I would think that probably, and I could ask my students this, I still have them for one more week, when it really comes down to learning and reviewing the detailed content, wait till the desktop, do it there, but they can access some material mobile.
I think it's, again, knowing your audience, knowing who the target audience is, what they're actually learning, and what is the best platform to actually leverage that. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all methodology. I think you have to look at that individually. I also think that in terms of retention, what we're finding is the retention level in some cases is lower, but there's almost a muscle memory, a kinesthetic way that the person knows. I go here, I tap, I do this, and it's there. So it's a different type of retention in some ways, and especially under stress, first response. That retention level sometimes is just gone. It's not there.
There's a question back here. Wait.
Just see an example. Sorry, I was really interested in the quick reference guide that Jerome had. What was the course number, so I can just have a look at it again?
Best place to have a look would be www.myemresources.com.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And this is probably getting close to the last question, but yeah, Kyle? Yeah.
I'm just interested in the amount of resource time each group spent developing, so for the themes, and then for the, considering if we've got the right tools like WP Touch Pro and the header theme and all that, and then for the app, how much time do you think was spent on each project?
Building the course from front to back took approximately about a year. We delivered it on time and actually under budget. Like I said, I lost my hair. I was the project manager on that particular adventure. Pass.
No, Jerome, I have to comment on the app, though. The turnaround time on the app with the developer was 1 week.
Because a lot of the content was essentially already staged and ready to go, the app was, literally a week and a half, and the Drupal site was maybe a weekend. Everything was ready to go. It was just a matter of throwing it up there with a theme and really getting the basic guts of it up. So it really didn't take very long, and it really didn't cost very much. But in hindsight, if we had not prepared for that in advance, there would have been significant development time to recompress and redevelop and recode.
For the mobile course website, it was an existing course, so I had a lot of material. I'd say probably around 2 months of the summer leading up to September, I was actively designing and building the site. And it's a side project because I have my own business, and so that's totally off the side of my desk, as everyone seems to say these days. So then also during the running of the course, at least probably 5 to 6, 7 hours per week of updating and stuff like that, trying to do that with the course content.
The course that I showed you guys, the new physician orientation, is actually still being worked on, so let's say a year and a half. But for just the interface that I showed you guys, I'd say that basically, to write that from scratch might be 2 to 6 days. So that's with getting the graphic designer to come in and mock something up, and then do the course format, do the theme and all that, and the filter. But if you're in the public sector, and especially if you're in healthcare, all you'd have to do is contact me, and if you ran Moodle, I could just provide you with that stuff, and then you'd upload it to your Moodle instance, and it would work.
This will be the last question.
Thank you. VCC has Moodle, of course, but is everything that you're doing here, it couldn't be just used in Moodle and used on mobile devices? There is an app, or does it work like that?
That's correct.
So thank you, everybody.
Can you repeat that? Did you say it won't work on a mobile device, or it just will work on a mobile device?
The question is, will it work? And I think you said it does work on mobile devices.
It'll work. It's not an app, it's web, so it's a web standard. It'll work on any kind of application that browses the internet.
However, like we see when we're looking at the screen up above, if something's on looks well on a computer, it doesn't look so. It's hard for us to see here. But if it's an ordinary website on a little screen for an iPhone, is it still possible to read it properly? And for just something like PDFs, I know sometimes it doesn't scroll properly to read PDFs off mobile.
So if you press the button on your iPhone, the course basically turns into that interface of the 4 icons across and then as many as it needs down. So each resource could be a book, it could be a quiz, it could be a bunch of resources like quizzes, assignments. They would click on it and they would go to it, and then it would it limits the width to the device, and they just scroll up and down. The PDFs will all open in a new window. The video has a play button. You click on it, it opens in the QuickTime player for the device. So.
Okay, thank you everybody. It's break time. But first of all, we'd really like to thank our presenters who came forward with these fabulous presentations for the showcase. Thank you very much.
So on behalf of Metro Ed and BC Campus, thank you so much for taking the time to come and do your presentation and kicking off this amazing event. So thank you so much. Great.
Thank you.
Bio break.
Okay, everybody, we'll take a bio break for 10 minutes and we'll reconvene at 22. Okay, thanks.
Swimmingly well. There should be, yeah.
This is, oh, I have to turn it on.